So I picked out 10 games, and I'm going to give you my spread pick for the week. So the first game is number 9, Miami at Virginia Tech, and Virginia Tech is laying 2.5. I think this game is where any chance of an ACC championship appearance, any chance of making it to the playoffs ends for Miami. I think Miami goes on the road, and I think they lose to Virginia Tech, and I'm going to lay those 2.5 points because I think Virginia Tech is going to win by 10 points or more. I think Virginia Tech's run game, including their quarterback, Hendon Hooker, will be too much for Miami. I know Miami's quarterback is brilliant. He's a Heisman Trophy contender as well. But Miami is not good on the road. I mean, look at that last game against North Carolina. North Carolina is not a great team. They've fallen off a cliff. No, that wasn't Miami. Sorry. NC State. There we go. Miami and NC State. Even worse, NC State is not a good team. And so I think they go on the road to Virginia Tech and lay an egg. That's why I'm going to lay those 2.5 points. Give me Virginia Tech in a mild upset. The next game, number 10, Indiana at Michigan State. Let me go back and correct that. Virginia Tech's laying 2.5 points. That's not an upset. That's taking the points. Sorry. I saw the ranking beside Miami. Anyways, next game, number 10, Indiana at Michigan State. Indiana laying 7.5 points. I'm going to lay those points. I think Indiana is a much better team than Michigan State. We saw Michigan State this past week, and they looked terrible. I think Indiana goes in confident, ready to go, and Michigan State's licking their wounds. Give me Indiana big over Michigan State. That's why I'm going to lay those 7.5 points. Number 12, Georgia, the next game, at Missouri, laying 11.5 points. I'm actually going to take those points because Missouri has a good offense and Georgia does not. And if we go back to the first game of the season, Missouri actually kind of held their own against Alabama, and Georgia is definitely not as good as Alabama. I'm not calling for the straight up upset, but I will take the 11.5 points, and don't be surprised if Missouri makes Georgia sweat. Now to the 3:30 games. Number 2, Notre Dame at Boston College. Notre Dame laying 13.5 points. Get ready. I'm taking the points, and I'm taking Boston College on the money line. I'm calling it. I think Boston College upsets Notre Dame. We saw what Boston College did against Clemson in Clemson. We saw what Boston College almost did against North Carolina. Boston College is due for a major upset, and this is going to be that major upset, and this is going to throw the playoff race into chaos. Give me those 13.5 points, and give me Boston College on the money line. Phil Jurkovec, the quarterback for Boston College. You know, I never heard of him, but whenever I looked up his stats, he's a pretty stinking good quarterback. And Ian Book, I'm not sold on him at all. So I'm going to take Boston College at home, and I think they kind of lull Notre Dame to sleep. If you ever watched a Boston College game at Boston College, they kind of lull you to sleep, and then somehow at the end you wake up, and there you go. You've been beat. And I think that's what happens. Notre Dame gets upset by Boston College. The next game, we go over to the West Coast. Number 20, USC against Arizona. USC laying 14 points. I'm going to lay those 14 points. USC all over Arizona. And that's all I'm going to say about that game. The next game, number 3, Ohio State at Maryland. Ohio State laying 26 points. I think that's just a little too much points. So give me those points. I'm not picking Maryland for the upset, but I think Ohio State will win by maybe 3 touchdowns. But 26 is just a little bit too much, especially how they looked against Rutgers. I still think they win big, but I'm going to take the points. Then we move on to the only 6 o'clock game, and that is number 1, Alabama at LSU, and Alabama is laying 28 points. I'll lay those 28 points all day long. I would lay 35 points. I would lay 42 points. I would lay 50 points. Look, Alabama is not going to have mercy on LSU. They remember what happened last year. Alabama, not only are they the number one team in the nation, not only are they way better than LSU, but they have revenge on their minds. This is going to be an ugly, ugly game, and don't be surprised if a fight breaks out in this game. It's going to be very, very ugly. I'm going to take Alabama by 40. I'm being serious. And then the late games, the 7 o'clock games. The first game, Arkansas at number 6, Florida. Florida laying 17.5. This might surprise some people. I'm actually going to take the 17.5. I still think Florida wins comfortably, but don't sleep on this Arkansas team. They are a really, really good team, and they are due for a really, really, really good game. Not enough to upset Florida because Florida's offense is super dynamic, but Florida's pass defense is still suspect. So I think Arkansas can lay some big plays on Florida and keep it kind of close. I'm going to take Florida by 2 touchdowns. Another West Coast game, 7 o'clock, Oregon, number 11, Oregon at Washington State. Oregon laying 8.5. I'm going to lay 8.5. Oregon looked really, really good against Washington State, and I'm still not sold on Washington State. Washington State, I know they won, but I don't think Washington State finishes with more than 4 or 5 wins, and I think this is one of their big losses of the year. Then the very last game that I'm picking, number 23, Northwestern at Purdue, and Northwestern is laying 3 points. This is a tough one to pick. Both of these teams are undefeated. Northwestern has looked better than Purdue, but it is on the road, and strange things happen on the road. Northwestern laying 3. Am I going to pick the upset? No, I'm going to stick with Northwestern, and I'll take the points. I think they win still in a close game, but I think they'll win by a touchdown or so. I've watched Northwestern in their last game, and they actually look really good. They move the ball well. They don't score a ton of points, but their defense gets enough stops for the win, and I think Northwestern pulls out another great win, and I think Northwestern climbs into the top 20. Maybe they start entering into the playoff conversation. No. It's way too far off for that. I'm going to wait 3 or 4 weeks if they're still undefeated to even start mentioning Northwestern. But Indiana, like I mentioned in my other segment, Indiana, keep your eye on that. So there's my GBD picks of the week.